Every man is being watched by God, by his future, by the destiny that waits for him on the other side of discipline. And whether a man realizes it or not, every day he steps onto a battlefield, not with swords, not with enemies, not with armies, but with the most dangerous force he will ever face, his own temptations. Temptation is not a small thing. It is not a side quest. It is not a minor inconvenience. Temptation is the spiritual enemy sent to test the strength of your character and the alignment of your soul. Every temptation is a question God asks you. Who are you becoming? The man of your destiny, or the man who collapses under himself? Because here's the truth most men never want to admit. Your fate is not stolen from you. You surrender it. And you surrender it the moment you allow temptation to weaken your mind, corrupt your habits, and fracture your focus. Temptation attacks men in silence, not through loud battles, not through obvious threats. It comes quietly, through comfort, through pleasure, through impulses, through emotions trying to hijack your judgment, through desires that whisper instead of roar. And this is why most men fall, not because they are weak, but because they aren't awake. The modern world has trained men to believe that temptation is harmless. Just one more time. Just this once. No one will know. It doesn't matter. And, more importantly, your spirit sees everything. When you fall to temptation, even in private, your soul records it. Your confidence feels it. Your discipline weakens from it. Your destiny shifts because of it. Temptation isn't just about sin, it's about self-betrayal. A man loses respect for himself long before he loses respect from others. A man folds internally long before the world sees him collapse externally. A man destroys his potential long before life destroys his opportunities. And it begins in the quiet moments where temptation asks you, are you a servant of discipline or a servant of desire? Here's the hidden truth. Every time you resist temptation, you don't just say no to a moment. You say yes to the man you're becoming. When you resist temptation, you strengthen your will. When you resist temptation, you sharpen your mind. When you resist temptation, you align yourself with God. When you resist temptation, you take back control of your fate. But when you give in, you don't just lose control of the moment, you lose control of your direction. Temptation is the thief of greatness, not because it steals your gifts, but because it tricks you into burying them. The enemy knows he can't destroy you directly, so he tries to make you destroy yourself quietly, with small compromises, consistent indulgence, tiny moments of weakness that pile up until they become your character. Temptation is a seed. If you water it, it becomes a habit. If you repeat it, it becomes a pattern. If you allow it, it becomes a chains. And chains are not broken by wishing. They are broken by mastery. A man who wants to shape his fate must first shape his impulses. A man who wants to stand with God must first stand against himself. A man who wants strength must first overcome the desires that weaken him. This is why men who master temptation walk differently. Their posture changes, their tone changes. Their confidence becomes unshakable because they know, I can command myself. When a man can command himself, no temptation can seduce him, no distraction can mislead him, no voice can intimidate him. Because he has done the hardest thing any man can do, he has conquered the enemy within, and that enemy doesn't disappear after one battle. Temptation returns, temptation evolves. Temptation studies your weaknesses and comes back stronger. But every time you win, you rise. Every time you reject the impulse, you level up spiritually. Every time you shut the door on temptation, you build a fortress around your destiny. The truth is harsh but liberating. A man who cannot say no to himself will always live a life he never wanted. A man who cannot discipline his desires will always be a prisoner. A man who cannot master temptation will bend to whatever pulls him. But a man who masters temptation becomes the architect of his fate. He doesn't live reactively. He lives intentionally. He doesn't collapse when life hits. He stands because he's trained himself to stand. He doesn't break under pressure. Pressure reveals him. Most men pray for strength, but refuse the battles that create it. They want purity without cleansing. They want discipline without sacrifice. They want destiny without refinement. But you are here because you're called to something different. You're not here to be average. You're not here to exist half awake. You're not here to be ruled by impulses like a man without direction. You are here to rise above the noise inside you. You are here to walk as a man who refuses to bow to fleeting desires. You are here to build a mind that cannot be bought by pleasure, a soul that cannot be moved by temptation, a character that cannot be shaken by weakness. Ask yourself, what temptations steal your strength? What impulses pull you off your path? What desires distract you from your purpose? Be brutally honest. Because honesty is the first blade a man uses to cut the chains around his destiny. Temptation isn't random. It attacks where you are vulnerable, where you are undisciplined, where you are unprepared. But weakness is not permanent. Weakness is a test, and tests are opportunities for transformation. Temptation is proof God is shaping you. He doesn't test men he has no plans for. If you feel the weight of temptation, it's because you are being prepared for a greater level of responsibility, a greater level of mastery, a greater level of purpose. Temptation is not punishment. It is preparation. Here is the spiritual truth. God doesn't want perfect men. He wants disciplined men, men who fight, men who rise after falling, men who choose alignment over indulgence, men who say, "My desires will obey me, my mind will obey God." That is the man who shapes his fate. That is the man who becomes unshakable. That is the man who stands in storms without collapsing. And every time you win the internal battle, you become more dangerous to the forces trying to stop your destiny. Because now, you're not just a man, you're a disciplined spirit, a forged soul, a warrior of self-control, a man God can trust with influence, purpose, and responsibility. Master your temptations and you master your life. There is a truth every disciplined man eventually learns. Your public victories are built on private wars. The world only sees the results. Your growth, your composure, your strength, your clarity, your rising influence, your unshakable presence. But none of that happens in front of people. It happens in the places no one applauds, no one claps, no one validates, no one witnesses. It happens inside the unseen spaces of your life, your mind, your habits, your late nights, your internal conversations, your silent battles against impulses trying to hijack your destiny. This is why a man who masters temptation becomes formidable. Because he doesn't just fight when people are watching him, he fights when no one will ever know. And it's in these silent battles where God evaluates the substance of a man. The unseen moments define a man's future. When the temptation hits, to take the easy path, to indulge the desire, to escape discipline, to fall into the old version of yourself, that moment is the gate between your past and your potential. And every time you resist, you build a new future. Every time you bend, you reinforce the old one. What you choose in private eventually becomes the life you live in public. Temptation always shows up where the stakes are highest. Your time, your energy, your body, your focus, your faith, your loyalty to your purpose, your obedience to God. And the enemy knows your weak points, not because he is strong, but because most men are careless with themselves. You must understand this. Temptation is strategic. Temptation is patient. Temptation is precise. It waits for the days you feel tired. It waits for the nights you feel isolated. It waits for the moments your confidence dips. It waits when you are frustrated, unfocused, emotionally charged, spiritually ungrounded. The enemy never wastes temptation on a man who is fully aware. He waits until you drift, even a little. That's why the greatest battle is not your temptation, but your attention. Where your attention goes, your resistance weakens. That is why a man who masters his fate learns to guard his mind like a fortress. He doesn't expose it to everything. He doesn't consume anything mindlessly. He filters the world. He chooses what enters his eyes, his ears, and his spirit. Because whatever enters you will grow in you, and whatever grows in you will eventually govern you. Temptation is most powerful when the mind is unfocused. But when the mind is disciplined, temptation loses its teeth. This is why God trains men through silence, through stillness, through private battles that feel almost invisible to everyone around you. When God is preparing you, He often isolates you, not to punish you, but to strengthen you, so that you learn to stand on your own 2 feet, without validation, without applause, without external support. You learn to fight temptation alone so that you can stand with Him publicly. Every strong man you admire endured a war you will never hear about. The war against laziness, the war against lust, the war against doubt, the war against anger, the war against fear, the war against pleasure that steals purpose, the war against impulses disguised as normal behavior. Mastery does not happen by accident. It happens through repeated refusal to betray yourself. A man becomes noble, not by what he achieves, but by what he refuses to indulge. A man becomes strong, not by what he lifts, but by what he can lay down. A man becomes wise, not by what he knows, but by what he can resist. Temptation always presents itself as something small. One moment, one click, one break, one indulgence. One emotional reaction, one escape from discomfort. But small temptations lead to massive consequences. Nothing destroys a man overnight. It happens gradually, quietly, incrementally. A small surrender today becomes a bigger surrender tomorrow. A small weakness repeated becomes a personality trait. A single compromise becomes a lifestyle. But the same is true for discipline. One victory today creates a stronger victory tomorrow. One act of self-control builds a life of mastery. Momentum works both ways, toward greatness or toward collapse, and the direction is decided not by motivation, but by your relationship with temptation. Here is a truth most men never hear. God doesn't send great destinies to men who cannot govern themselves. not because he wants to withhold from them, but because he refuses to let blessings become weapons that destroy them. A man who cannot master temptation cannot manage influence. He cannot manage responsibility. He cannot manage leadership. He cannot manage abundance. He cannot manage spiritual authority. So God tests your private battles before he trusts you with public victories. Temptation is your training. When you resist it, you are not just showing strength, you are building it. Every resistance adds weight to your spiritual muscles. Every refusal adds steel to your character. Every disciplined choice sharpens your destiny. Every no you tell your impulses becomes a yes. God can give your future. You are not just fighting random urges. You are forging the man who will carry the life you are praying for. You must become dangerous to your weakness. Not through aggression, but through awareness, through discipline, through spiritual grounding, through self-respect. Weak men fall into temptation because they have no structure, no standards, no sacred boundaries, no spiritual perimeter. But a man who knows God walks with systems, boundaries, and purpose. He protects himself intentionally. He eliminates openings that allow temptation to enter. He creates distance from anything that weakens him, even if the world calls it extreme. Because he knows, the man who guards his environment guards his destiny. Temptation is not conquered in the moment it appears. Temptation is conquered in the lifestyle you build long before it arrives. Here's the difference between a weak man and a disciplined man. A weak man reacts. A disciplined man prepares. A weak man waits until the temptation hits. A disciplined man structures his life so the temptation has no room to thrive. A weak man falls and wonders why. A disciplined man stands because he chose to be unshakable before the battle even started. You are not fighting temptation, you are being sculpted by it. Every challenge is shaping you into a man who can handle more. More purpose, more responsibility, more influence, more spiritual authority. God is not just strengthening your self-control, He's strengthening your calling. And the man who can control his impulses will one day command his future. This is why you cannot take temptation lightly. It is the training ground for greatness. It is the sharpening stone for your destiny. It is the fire that burns away weakness. A man who masters temptation walks differently because he knows, I have defeated what was meant to defeat me. He earns a confidence that can't be faked, a peace that cannot be bought, a clarity that cannot be imitated. Because he didn't just pray for strength, he earned it. He didn't just ask for mastery, he built it. He didn't just wish for destiny, he protected it. And every time temptation comes back, he smiles, not because it's easy, but because he knows the war is already won in the moments no one sees. Before a man ever loses to temptation in his actions, he loses to it in his thoughts. Every downfall begins as a whisper, a suggestion, a small permission, a silent negotiation in the mind. That's why the greatest war of your life is not fought with your hands, but with your attention, your focus, your interpretation of reality, and your internal dialogue. The mind is the throne of your destiny, and temptation is always trying to steal that throne. If your mind is weak, your future will be weak. If your mind is undisciplined, your choices will be undisciplined. If your mind is unguarded, your life will be unguarded. A man who does not take responsibility for his thoughts will become a slave to his impulses. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Take every thought captive. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Thoughts shape beliefs. Beliefs shape decisions. Decisions shape habits. Habits shape identity. Identity shapes destiny. So the battle always begins in the mental realm. Temptation doesn't start as an action, it starts as an idea that whispers, "Just this once. No one will know. You deserve it." It's not that serious. You can start again tomorrow. The enemy doesn't force you, he influences you. He plants subtle lies that feel harmless. He makes compromise look logical. He makes impulse look like relief. And a man with an untrained mind believes whatever feels comfortable in the moment. But a man with a disciplined mind recognizes the lie the moment it shows up and crushes it before it grows. Your mind is a battlefield. Treat it like one. Most men leave their mind wide open, consuming anything, watching everything, entertaining every thought, indulging every emotion. And then they wonder why temptation defeats them so easily. Your mind becomes what you repeatedly expose it to. If you feed it noise, you become chaotic. If you feed it lust, you become weak. If you feed it negativity, you become broken. If you feed it comfort, you become soft. If you feed it truth, you become unshakable. What you allow in your mind today will become your master tomorrow. A king does not let just anyone enter his palace. A warrior does not let the enemy stroll into his camp. A man of God does not let poison enter his spirit. So ask yourself, who and what have you been allowing into your mind without permission? Mental discipline is spiritual discipline. Do not separate the two. Your spirit is strengthened by your thoughts, and your thoughts are governed by what you allow yourself to consume, focus on, and meditate on. A man who prays but doesn't discipline his mind prays for freedom but lives in chains. A man who seeks God but doesn't govern his thoughts asks for strength but feeds his weakness. A man who wants destiny but entertains destructive ideas kills his future with his own imagination. Understand this deeply. You can't outpray the thoughts you refuse to control. You can't outwork a mindset you refuse to confront. You can't outdiscipline desires you continually feed in your mind. This is why mastery begins in silence. Take away distractions and you face your real self, your fears, your cravings, your wounds, your impulses, your habits, your inner arguments. Most men run from silence because silence reveals truth. But the man who conquers silence conquers himself. Because in silence, you learn to hear your thoughts. And when you hear them clearly, you learn to separate lies from truth, impulses from wisdom, temptation from purpose. A disciplined man is not just a man of action. He is a man of mastery over what enters, what stays, and what dies in his mind. Temptation thrives in unexamined thoughts. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs you to stop thinking, to drift, to react, to follow emotions instead of principles. Your mind must never be a passive space. It must be a guarded territory, a fortress of awareness. And a fortress has three things: walls, boundaries that protect your focus, guards, beliefs that filter your thoughts, leadership, a clear purpose that directs your attention. Without these, your mind becomes a playground for temptation. Here's what most men fail to understand. Temptation is not seeking your pleasure, it is seeking your direction. If it can direct your thoughts, it can direct your life. If it can influence your internal world, it can dominate your external world. If it can enter your imagination, it can rewrite your destiny. So the question is not, will I face temptation? But, how fortified is my mind when temptation arrives? Your mind must become a place where weak thoughts cannot survive. Discipline is not just about controlling behavior. It's about creating an environment where destructive desires cannot grow. That means removing triggers. That means avoiding familiar traps. That means limiting indulgences. That means restructuring your life around purpose, not comfort. A disciplined mind rejects anything that endangers the man he is becoming. He knows every thought is either building his destiny or breaking it. Every imagination is either sharpening him or weakening him. Every internal dialogue is either lifting him toward God or dragging him back into darkness. He treats thoughts like seeds, and he refuses to water the ones that will grow into chains. Strong men don't control everything, but they control what matters, their mind. And this control gives them power that is rare in today's world. A man who owns his mind becomes unpredictable, untouchable, and unstoppable. He cannot be manipulated by pleasure. He cannot be seduced by shortcuts. He cannot be shaken by emotions. He cannot be controlled by circumstances. He cannot be dominated by cravings. Because he knows the mind is the general, the body is the soldier. And destiny follows the general. Let me tell you the truth. Temptation doesn't want your peace. It wants your purpose. It wants the man you could become. It wants the legacy you could leave. It wants the calling God placed on your life. It wants the spiritual authority you are growing into. If the enemy can distract you mentally, he can derail you spiritually. He can weaken your discipline. He can blur your clarity. He can fog your judgment. He can numb your conscience. He can clutter your purpose. But when a man sharpens his mind, temporal temptations lose power and eternal purpose takes over. This is the transformation God desires, from reactive to intentional, from emotional to stable, from impulsive to principled, from scattered to focused, from worldly to spiritually anchored, from mentally weak to mentally fortified. This is how a man becomes trustworthy. This is how a man becomes dangerous to the enemy. This is how a man becomes a guardian of his own destiny. He wins the battle long before anyone sees the result. He wins in the mind. He wins in the inner world. He wins in the thoughts he refuses to entertain. Because the truth is simple, you cannot fall to a temptation you never allow into your mind. No man rises by accident. No man becomes unshakable by luck. Strength is carved on the battlefield within. And temptation? Temptation is not just the enemy. It is the examiner. It stands at the gates of your destiny asking one question: are you worthy to enter? Every time you resist what weakens you, every time you silence the cravings that drain your power, every time you choose order over chaos, purpose over pleasure, mission over mood, you are not just winning a fight. You are building a throne inside yourself. A throne where your higher self rules. A throne where your discipline speaks louder than your impulses. A throne where your spirit sits as king and your desires kneel. Because here's the truth most men refuse to face. You can't lead a life you can't control. You can't ask God for elevation while you're still bowing to your urges. You can't claim greatness when your habits drag you like chains across the ground. To master your fate, you must first master your appetite for laziness, your appetite for instant gratification, your appetite for validation, your appetite for distraction. These are the invisible addictions that quietly assassinate men before they ever rise. But the man who conquers himself, he becomes a weapon in God's hands, a vessel strong enough to carry destiny, a warrior disciplined enough to walk the narrow road, a king wise enough to guard his own crown. And when you begin to win these internal wars, life responds, heaven responds. Even people around you respond, because they can feel the weight of a man who governs himself, a man who doesn't collapse under pressure, a man who doesn't betray himself for temporary comfort, a man who carries a sacred authority earned through sacrifice. This is the truth. Self-control is spiritual power in physical form, and the man who masters temptation becomes unstoppable, not because life gets easier, but because he gets harder to break. This is where your fate begins to bend, not in the world outside you, but in the world inside you, where the real war is won. There comes a moment in every man's life where he stops asking, "Why is life so hard?" and starts declaring, "I was built for this." That shift, that inner turning, is the birth of the self-governed man. Not a man ruled by impulse, not a man steered by emotion, not a man carried by comfort or cravings, but a man led by conviction. A man who understands one timeless truth: if I can rule myself, nothing outside can overthrow me. 1,000 storms can hit him: temptation, fear, delay, stress, rejection, but they don't dismantle him anymore. Why? Because he has become his own anchor, his own protector, his own commander. He has rebuilt his life from the inside out. His mind is no longer a battlefield, it is a fortress. His discipline is no longer a struggle, it is a lifestyle. His emotions are no longer dictators, they are advisors. His temptations are no longer victories for darkness, they are reminders of who he refuses to be. And something powerful happens when a man reaches this level. God trusts him with more responsibility, more wisdom, more opportunities, more influence, more weight, because he can carry it without collapsing. He becomes a pillar, not just in his own story, but in the lives of those around him. They walk softer around him, not out of fear, but out of respect, because there's a certain gravity in a man who has mastered himself, a certain presence, a certain silence that speaks louder than noise. This is the man who no longer chases validation. He generates it. He no longer begs for discipline. He embodies it. He no longer avoids difficulty. He confronts it with calm authority because he knows who he is, and the world can sense it. The heavens can honor it. Even his enemies can't deny it. This is the rise of the self-governed man, a man who no longer bows to temptation, a man who refuses to betray his mission, a man who carries himself like someone God can trust with destiny. This is the man who becomes a force, a standard, a symbol of inner mastery, a living reminder that greatness is not achieved through talent or luck, but through ownership of the mind, discipline of the flesh, and loyalty to the spirit. And once he becomes this man, his fate cannot be taken from him. Because he earned it within, there's always a final battle. Not with the world, not with your environment, not with your enemies, but with the man you used to be. He doesn't disappear easily. He doesn't retreat quietly. He waits in the shadows of your thoughts, hoping you slip, hoping you forget, hoping you fall back into his arms, the arms of comfort, desire, distraction, and weakness. The old you doesn't want to die. He wants to drag you back into the patterns that kept you small. He wants you impulsive. He wants you addicted. He wants you easily influenced. He wants you spiritually blind. Because he knows something terrifying. If you outgrow him, you become unstoppable. So part 6 is the moment of confrontation, where the new man clashes with the old man, where destiny wrestles with dysfunction, where purpose meets the poison of past behavior. This battle is not loud. It's quiet, internal, sacred. It happens in the privacy of your thoughts, in the decisions no one sees, in the temptations you face alone. The old self whispers, "Just this once. You deserve it. No one will know. It doesn't matter." But the new self speaks with divine authority. "I know exactly what this will cost me, and I refuse." That's where transformation becomes irreversible, in the refusal. Not because you're perfect, but because you're committed. A committed man is dangerous. A disciplined man is unshakable. A self-aware man is rare. But a man who can look his old self in the face and say, "You will not lead me anymore," that man is reborn. Then something shifts. You start noticing the traps before they appear. You recognize the patterns before they repeat. You feel the spiritual weight behind every tiny decision. You start choosing long-term over instant pleasure, purpose over pleasure, God over impulse. And in that moment, you become a man your old self never imagined you could be. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. You outgrew your urges. You out-disciplined your temptations. You out-faithed your past. The man who masters his temptations becomes a guardian of his fate. His steps become steady. His spirit becomes sharp. His heart becomes aligned with heaven. And for the first time, the old self stops chasing you. Because he knows he can't follow you where you're going next. When a man finally rises above his temptations, when he stops being led by impulse, by lust, by ego, by weakness, when he masters the battlefield within, his destiny changes. Because destiny is not something you stumble into. Destiny is something you qualify for, and the man who conquers himself meets the qualifications heaven has been waiting for. This part is the part where God starts trusting you with weight, with responsibility, with purpose, with opportunities, with battles that matter, with victories that elevate not just you, but everyone connected to your life. A man who has mastered his temptations is no longer a liability. He becomes an asset to the kingdom. He becomes a vessel, a weapon, a light, because God cannot build a kingdom on a man who falls every time his flesh calls. But he can build nations on a man who says, "I choose strength over impulse. I choose purpose over pleasure. I choose God over myself." And here's the truth most men avoid. Every time you choose discipline over temptation, you're not just avoiding a mistake, you're advancing your future. Every refusal becomes a brick in the foundation of your destiny. Every moment of self-control becomes proof that you can be trusted. Every temptation resisted becomes a spiritual promotion. This is why ancient warriors spent years mastering themselves before they ever touched a battlefield, because the greatest wars are won long before the enemy appears. This is also why prophets, sages, and kings endured seasons of testing, not to break them, but to prepare them. But the man who can command his mind, his emotions, his urges, his habits, that man can command his destiny. And once you cross this threshold, temptation stops being a threat and becomes a reminder of who you used to be, a reminder of the battles you've already won, a reminder of how far you've risen. The man who masters his temptations walks different, speaks different, thinks different, moves different. He becomes calm in chaos, unshaken by noise, unimpressed by shortcuts, unaffected by lust, untouched by distractions. Not because he's superhuman, but because he's spiritually disciplined, and the world can feel it. They feel the authority in his presence. They feel the clarity in his voice. They feel the conviction in his decisions. They feel the weight of a man who has already fought the hardest war, the war with himself, and emerged victorious. This is the destiny of such a man. He becomes a leader without trying, a protector without boasting, a guide without demanding, a warrior without chaos, a king without a throne. Because true kingship, true power, true influence, true legacy comes from the man who governs the kingdom within before he tries to govern the world outside. There comes a point in every man's journey where the battle is no longer about temptation, but about maintenance. Because once you rise above the urges that used to break you, a new responsibility sits on your shoulders. You must protect the fire that made you victorious. Temptation doesn't disappear when you win. It evolves. It changes shape. It becomes quieter, smarter, more strategic. And it waits, not for your weakness, but for your comfort. The moment a man thinks he's untouchable is the moment he becomes vulnerable. The moment he thinks he's finished growing is the moment his downfall begins. The moment he believes he's too strong to fall is the moment the enemy starts sharpening the blade. That's why the true masters never graduate from discipline. They never stop self-examining. They never stop watching their own mind. They never stop trimming the weeds in their spirit. Because they know the soul you neglect becomes the soul that betrays you. Listen carefully. The man who has mastered his temptations must now master vigilance. Your victory is not a certificate. It's a contract. A lifelong agreement that says, if you want to keep this strength, you must keep earning it. The great men who survived their own greatness, the men who didn't drown in fame, power, success, desire, pride, were the men who guarded themselves ruthlessly, silently, daily, relentlessly. They watched their own hearts more closely than they watched their enemies. Because a wise man knows an unguarded spirit is more dangerous than any external threat. This is where your fate is shaped. Not in the moments when you fall and rise, but in the seasons when you stand tall and refuse to let complacency rot your foundation. Every time you wake up early instead of sleeping in, you protect your fire. Every time you pray instead of scroll, you protect your fire. Every time you walk away from desire, you protect your fire. Every time you choose silence over ego, you protect your fire. Every time you keep your mind focused when the world tries to scatter it, you protect your fire. And here's the truth most men avoid because it's brutal. Mastery is not measured by how high you climb, but by how clean you remain when you reach the mountaintop. The higher you rise, the more dangerous the temptations become, not because they are stronger, but because you have more to lose. Your discipline becomes your shield. Your conviction becomes your sword. Your humility becomes your armor. Your prayer becomes your breath. Your vigilance becomes your survival. When a man protects his inner fire, God trusts him with greater weight, greater purpose, greater victories, greater influence. Because God cannot elevate a man who refuses to guard the blessings he's praying for. And this is where destiny sharpens itself. The man who guards his spirit guards his future. The man who guards his thoughts guards his direction. The man who guards his discipline guards his power. This is the part of your story where you stop being a warrior in training and become a guardian of your own kingdom, strong without arrogance, focused without fear, committed without applause, grounded without wavering, dangerous without chaos. And heaven takes note, because a man who protects his inner fire doesn't just master his temptations, he becomes untouchable. There comes a moment in a man's evolution where the war shifts from survival to sovereignty, where discipline becomes more than a habit, it becomes identity, where your prayers are no longer desperate cries for strength, but declarations of purpose, because you have become the man who acts on what he asks for. This is the highest tier of mastery, when your behavior finally aligns with the destiny God wrote for you. And hear this clearly, most men never reach this stage, not because they lack strength, but because they lack consistency of character. They rise for a season, then fall into laziness. They win a few battles, then trust their comfort more than their mission. They taste a little growth and think the journey is over. But the man who masters his temptations walks a different path. He doesn't allow a good month to erase the standard he fought to build. He doesn't let convenience rewrite the values forged in pain. He doesn't allow success to make him spiritually blind. Because he knows you don't get to keep what you don't continue to protect. This is where the true crown lies. Not in the applause of the world, not in the achievements, not in being respected by men, but in being trusted by heaven. And God only places weight on shoulders that have proven worthy of carrying it. Look at the giants of history, the ones whose lives echoed beyond their lifetime. It wasn't their talent that made them legends. It wasn't their brilliance. It wasn't their gifts. It was their capacity to rule themselves when everything around them tried to pull them off course. Self-mastery is the throne every man wants, but few are willing to bleed for. Because to own your life, you must first own your impulses. To own your future, you must command your present. To own your purpose, you must bury your excuses. This is why most men stay ordinary. They are prisoners to their urges, slaves to distraction, servants to emotion, followers of comfort, worshippers of temporary pleasure. But not you. Not anymore. Not after everything you've walked through. Not after everything you've conquered inside yourself. Because once a man has defeated his darkest desires and walked away from everything that tried to control him, he becomes something rare, something dangerous, something unshakable. He becomes a man God can trust with vision, with leadership, with influence, with destiny. And hear this truth. The greatest reward for mastering temptation is not ease, but clarity. Clarity about who you are. Clarity about what matters. Clarity about what you're meant to build. clarity about what God expects from you. Your mind becomes quiet. Your heart becomes steady. Your soul becomes aligned. This is the crown. This is the reward. This is the summit every disciplined man eventually reaches, a life not controlled by emotion, not chained by impulses, not ruled by temptation, but governed by wisdom, anchored by faith, fueled by discipline. When you reach this level, your presence changes everything. People feel your certainty. They sense your restraint. They recognize your authority, not the loud, insecure kind, but the silent, spiritual, immovable kind. Because the man who masters himself doesn't need to prove anything. His life speaks, his restraint speaks, his discipline speaks, his peace speaks, his consistency speaks, his faith speaks. This is the end of the battle, but the beginning of the reign. Because the man who can govern himself is finally ready to govern his destiny.